Oh my god. Oh! No!
Oh, no.
Oh my god, I just got rolled! Oh my god. Now, what I just showed you is the coolest thing you've ever seen. I know it is. You don't have to tell me twice, right? But when you think of Passtime, you probably think of this, right? Massive map with launch pads everywhere, sniper sightlines the size of the moon, engineers building sentry guns directly in front of the goal, pyros playing pyro. This is not making Passtime look so good now, is it? Well, that's because the Passtime UQ4 in casual is not the same Passtime that all of these crazy clips are gathered in. This version of Passtime is a whole lot different. It's 4v4 on custom-made maps hosted entirely by the TF2 community, and the game has custom rules tailored specifically to make the game less about this and more about this. Oh!
Ooh.
What the fuck? Before I get into just how incredible 4v4 Passtime is, I really just need to hammer home just how completely and utterly garbage the casual version of this game mode is. Because it's a mess. Whilst the ball is flying through the air during a pass, dealing damage to it via any means will knock it out of the air. And you can also knock back the ball with damage too, which will send it flying. And in theory, this sounds all well and good until you realise that most classes in the game have hit-scan weapons. Point and click guns where the bullet has 0 travel time. So this means that any idiot can just stand near their own goal and spam any attempt at a goal with bullets to knock the ball away. This is extremely easy to do. Much easier than to actually pull off the cool offensive plays that people do. So the game ends up centralizing around this hyper defensive gameplay. And this just slows down the game drastically. In fact, if you want a better example, in 2020, there was a 6v6 Passtime tournament that was hosted on the casual Passtime maps, and it was a complete disaster because going for cool setups was insanely risky, so teams would just overwhelmingly follow one simple strategy. They would get the ball early and run towards their own side of the map and try and keep the ball there. They would then patiently set up a massive triple sticky jump from their demo. They would then pass to the demo right as he'd hit his stickies, and he would fly across the map in an instant and score the goal. And that was just the entire game. So whichever team got the ball early and managed to keep it just won the entire round. This is incredibly boring to play and to watch, so it's no surprise that Passtime in casual is mostly a dead game mode, rarely seeing a lobby even half full of players. But if this is how tragic Passtime is in casual, what makes 4v4 Passtime such a good game mode? Well, the answer is actually remarkably simple. You just take all of the stuff that's boring and stupid about casual Passtime, and you just remove it. Maps too big? Make them smaller. Boring classes? Just get rid of them. Demo placing stickies on the goal to deny scores? Ban the sticky bomb launcher. Every single hit scan weapon in the entire game denying passes for free? That's easy. You just ban every single hit scan weapon in the entire game. That's right, it's projectiles and melee only in this game mode. If you want to deny my sick dunk, then you better fucking earn it. You might think that restricting the game this heavily would make the game less interesting, but in reality, the complete opposite is true. When you restrict the game mode this hard, you actually allow the interesting sides of the game mode to shine through. Instead of centralizing around building sentries and shooting the ball as Putis, instead the game becomes about all of the cool movement and all the flashy plays, and it's absolutely glorious. So now let's cover the simple basics of 4v4 Passtime. This is the Passtime jack. It's the ball that you're trying to dunk into the enemy goal. If you put your crosshair onto your teammates whilst you're holding the ball, you lock onto them. If you pass the ball whilst locked on, the ball will follow that player until it reaches them or gets intercepted somehow. So the basic game plan is very simple. You pass to your teammate whilst they do a bomb across the map. Then they land and jump up again to grab the ball, and then they throw it in the goal. Sounds easy, right? But the enemy team has many ways to defend against this. The simplest method is to just jump in front of the goal. This will intercept the ball as it's about to be scored. But players can also intercept the pass itself. As the pass travels through the air, an enemy player can jump in the way of it, stealing the ball. The player who intercepts the ball as it travels gets 2 seconds of invulnerability and a speed boost. So intercepts end up being a very high risk and high reward strategy. If you miss the intercept, then you aren't on goal to defend. But if you hit it, you can single-handedly score on the enemy before they can even react. There's also steals. If an enemy player is holding the ball and you melee them, you will steal the ball out of their hands and get that same 2 seconds of invulnerability and speed. This can obviously be done before an enemy jumps off the ground, but if you're feeling really adventurous, you can jump up at the same time as they do to melee steal the ball out of the air. Another defensive strategy is to damage the ball as it travels. Whilst the ball is following a player during a pass, it's team colored. If it takes damage in any way, the ball goes neutral and turns white. If the ball goes neutral during a pass, it will stop following the player it was being passed to and it will fall out of the sky. So if you can splash the ball with your rockets or even air shot it directly, you can prevent the pass reaching the enemy player. And similarly to this, you can fire rockets at the goal to defend too. A well-timed rocket can neutral the ball and knock it away right before it was about to reach the goal. There's also these things in the corner of the maps. These are called catapults. If you throw the ball at the pole, it launches it away to the other side of the map, which can be useful to clear the ball in a pinch. And there's also, of course, hitting crazy air shots to defend. But going for air shots on defense is a pretty risky strategy. In fact, Passtime players even have a saying for it. Air shot equals lose. Oh, no way! Airshot equals lose. But this is the general gameplay loop of 4v4 Passtime. The team with possession goes on the offensive, passing between each other to travel across the map and to duke out defenders. And if they lose possession on their attack, now the other team is on the offensive. So you get this back and forth going throughout the game. First team to 5 goals wins the round, and first to 2 rounds wins the entire match. And in Passtime, we have 3 playable classes. Each of these classes has their own set of strengths and weaknesses. The soldier is the most versatile class, being able to very quickly change from offense to defense based on the state of the game. He has the most general use mobility options available to him, and he's very good at controlling the high ground. And you can run up to 3 soldiers on your team. Then there's the demo. All of the sticky bomb launchers are banned in this game mode because they're like really boring. So demo is limited to shields and pipes and shoes and cabers. But these shields make demo an offensive powerhouse. You can travel across the entire map in the blink of an eye, way faster than a soldier could ever dream of doing. But your mobility isn't as versatile as a soldier's rocket jumps. You only have 1 charge every 10 seconds and only 1 caber. And you can use pipes to pipe jump, but you have to wait for them to explode on the ground. So you're not as good on defense as a soldier is. Then you've got the medic. Medic is unsurprisingly the least mobile class, so you might think medic kind of sucks in Passtime. But medic is shockingly powerful. But not because he heals his teammates and stuff. No, that part's completely fake in Passtime. His strength comes from being just a massive rat, just an absolute freak holding W at enemy players trying to kill them. Medic has a much faster walk speed than soldier and demo, so if the enemy has the ball, a medic can run at them with their melee out to pressure them insanely hard. Medic also has the longest loose throw range by a large margin, meaning he can score the goal without having to be anywhere near the enemy defenders. So a single medic intercept or steal can let him score on the goal from anywhere past the halfway line. Demo and medic are both limited to just 1 per team. The simplest way to win a Passtime round is to pass back and forth between your teammates in order to travel across the map. But what if your teammates aren't there? You can't fire your weapons whilst holding the ball, so you can't just rocket jump with it, so what do you do then? Well, now we get to my favourite part. The movement.
What are you gonna do?
What's this?
He's gonna do something.
Mom? Yeah.
Wait, what the
But I'm way too high. What's this?
Kind of spicy. I think everyone just dies. Yeah.
We're kind of dead.
Passtime has a ton of tech that you can utilize as an individual to carry the ball around solo, without the need for teammates to pass it back and forth to. And this can be a very powerful strategy when used in the right situation. And to explain that, I need to quickly explain the details of how the ball works in Passtime. If I throw the ball directly up and then jump into it, I don't actually re-grab the ball. If a teammate throws it like this, I can jump into it to grab it, but I can't do it off of my own throw. After throwing the ball, I can can only re-grab it again when it goes neutral. The ball goes neutral when it hits the floor again or when it takes damage. And knowing all this allows you to use it to your advantage in a ton of different ways. First, we're going to go over the soldier stuff, because understanding the soldier tech will make it much easier to understand the demo and med stuff when we talk about that later. So first, let's talk about dribbling, one of the most fundamental pastime techniques. If I'm in the air with the ball, I can throw it directly downwards and then jump back into it to re-grab it. This works because the ball bouncing off the ground makes it neutral again, allowing me to jump back into it and actually grab it. This might look overly flashy and a little bit pointless, but it's actually incredibly useful. Enemies on defense will jump in front of the goal to try and block your shot. If you just throw the ball directly at them, you just lose the ball instantly. But if you dribble, you mix up the timing of your throw. So the defenders waste their health and ammo jumping when you didn't even try and shoot. And dribbles can range massively in their complexity. This simple dribble that we're doing here is what I like to call a pencil dribble, because every time you dribble, you go directly down and then directly back up again, kind of like a pencil. These work well at a low level, but as players get more experienced, you will die trying to do dribbles like this. A soldier can just jump up at you and market garden you at the peak of your dribble. Or you get pre-fire air shot, because they know exactly where you intend to jump next. But there's other types of dribbles you can learn, like rebound dribbles, rebounding the ball off of a wall and then jumping back into it to grab it again. There's also fence dribbles. Most maps have walls and fences in front of the goal, and you can dribble off of these in a whole bunch of creative ways. You can throw the ball on the ground, land on the fence, and then jump into the ball. You can throw the ball on the fence and then land on the floor and jump back into it again. You can throw the ball on the lower part of the fence, then land on the higher part and jump back at the ball. And there's also speed shot dribbles. Gain some speed off your first jump and throw the ball ahead of you, and then speed shot back into it. These are pretty tricky to do, but they're very powerful when used correctly. And if you're feeling really adventurous, you can even sink dribble. Throw the ball down while falling from a higher place and then sink at the bottom to re-grab it. But these dribbles are a little bit of a meme, really, since you have to bait your entire team by standing in the skybox to be able to do this, but they are cool when you hit them. The power of dribbles comes from chaining them together. A single dribble isn't very hard to predict or deny, but it's very difficult for the enemy to predict and then deny a very complex chain of dribbles around the map. And the more complex your dribbles are, the harder they are to deny. Dribbles are incredibly powerful on offense. But what if I'm not on offense? Instead, I have the ball on my side of the map. Well, this is where we get to what's called a self-bomb. A self-bomb is exactly what it sounds like. It's a method of setting up a bomb without a pass so you can execute the entire thing all on your own, single-handedly carrying the ball across the map and into the enemy goal. Self-bombs range from extremely simple to unbelievably complicated, but despite their complexity, they're all made up of small individual parts that are chained together. So the best way to explain a self-bomb is to explain each individual link in the chain. There's multiple ways to start off a self-bomb, and the simplest is called a rebound. You throw the ball at a wall and then rocket jump as it comes back to you, and this allows you to do a single rocket jump with the ball in hand. You might remember from earlier that you can't grab your own throws until they go neutral. So the trick to this one is to jump right as the ball comes back into contact with you. If you time it right, your rocket from your rocket jump will make the ball go neutral again, and this will allow you to jump and carry the ball along with you. You can also do this by rolling the ball across the ground into a surface and then jumping with it. When you get close to the ball, it has some magnetism to it, so it will vacuum towards the player as you get close. So if you time your jump right, the ball will follow you as you leave the ground. So if you have no high walls to rebound off of, you can do it off of these little ledges instead. Rebounds can often be the start of super complicated self-bombs, but they can also just be a good way to reposition in general. So even if you're not doing anything complicated, these are incredibly important to learn. But the most common way to start a self-bomb is with a lob, which is pretty self-explanatory. You lob the ball at a ramp or a high place or somewhere as a setup to be able to jump back to the ball and pick it up later. You can lob at ramps to bomb off of them like this. You can also lob onto high places and then skip off of them. You can lob on flat ground and then speed shot on top of the ball. As long as you lob it at a surface that you're able to stand on, the ball will always go neutral when you do this. If you lob onto a ramp that's too steep, the ball will remain team colored, meaning that if you jump directly into it, you won't grab it. But that doesn't mean these lobs are impossible. If you lob onto a steep ramp, you need to jump into it, then shoot a rocket so that it hits the ramp and the ball at the same time. Your rocket will neutral the ball and launch you forward. And if you timed it right, the ball should be in your hands after you do this. This is trickier than a regular lob, but can still work as the start of a self-bomb. But let's say you've done your lob, and you've jumped with the ball, and now you're in the sky. But the enemy has lots of people defending their goal. So what do you do now? Well, you could use the dribbles that we learned earlier, but that's not the only option you have. There's also what we like to call an extender. Whilst moving at high speeds, you throw the ball loose and then fire a rocket to propel yourself and hit the ball at the same time. This will re-grab the ball and it will give you more speed because of your extra rocket fired. Extenders are very difficult to learn, but they're unbelievably powerful. Extenders let you add extra speed to your bombs. They also let you change direction mid-bomb. They also mix up the timing of your shot on goal. And as you can imagine, extenders let you travel much larger distances in one single self-bomb. And you can chain extenders for as long as you have rockets loaded, and they make your movement incredibly hard to predict for an enemy defender. There's multiple types of extender. The simplest is a ramp extender. As you're sliding across the ramp with a little bit of speed, you throw the ball at the ramp and then fire a rocket at the ramp to launch yourself forward. If you aimed your extender right, this should carry the ball with you after you fire the next rocket. Literally every pastime map in the game has lots of ramps, so these are extremely common. There's even a ramp above the enemy goal on some maps, allowing you to extender off the top of the enemy goal and strafe back around to get the score. But what if you have the ball and you're on these side ramps, but you don't have very much speed? If you just throw the ball, it's going to travel away from you way too fast for you to rocket off of it and do an extender. Well, luckily, there's a super easy extender called a self-glop. I don't really know why it's called a self-glop, but it is, so we're just rolling with it. At low speeds, you can rebound the ball off of this wall in front of the ramp, and then jump off of the ramp as the ball comes back to you. This is basically like a mid-air rebound, and they're quite easy to do, and they're very useful. Although because it's done at such low speed, it's very easy for enemy players to deny you from doing. Then there's a wall extender. If you have the right speed and angle, you can throw the ball at a wall directly in front of you, and then wall shot to neutral the ball and take it back with you. These are a lot trickier than ramp extenders, because your speed and travel direction needs to be perfect for them to work. But you can do them on walls directly in front of you and walls beside you. But to hit it on a wall at your side, you need to have a very precise amount of speed. And you can do some seriously creative wall extenders if you hit the right bomb. There's also what's called a hook shot, a type of wall extender that works at low speeds with good height. There's a bunch of ways to do this, but the simplest is this. Jump off of a high place with the ball in hand. Then lob it up at a wall, aiming super high up at the wall. Then rocket jump off of the floor and back onto the wall. You can even chain this one into another wall extender for a crazy clip. Extenders are tricky, but they're essentially the bread and butter of most of the craziest bombs you're gonna see people do. But what if, after all of our extenders, there's still no opportunity to score? There's just way too many defenders. Well, that is when we start involving our teammates again, passing the ball off to them. I just used all of my health and rockets for my cool bomb, so now they can use some of theirs to keep the offense going. But just locking the ball onto my teammates and then passing it to them is so lame, and the enemy team might have an easy time intercepting it if it's a basic pass. So instead of just passing to your teammates, you go for a handoff. I'm above enemy goal now. Oh, handoff. In the sky! Oh my god! A handoff is when you pass the ball to your teammate, but you don't lock onto them to throw it. You instead throw the ball loose for them to collect mid-air. Handoffs require very good coordination and very good game sense from both players involved. You need your teammate to call where they're coming from, and you yourself need to have good enough game sense to know where to throw it for them to best be able to grab it out of the air. Handoffs are insanely flashy, but they're also way harder for an enemy to deny. It's much less less predictable than a regular pass, so it's much harder to defend against. And the fact that they look awesome is just the cherry on top. Now, if you're looking for more ways to carry solo, there's a few more tricks that you can add to your arsenal. The easiest of which is called a pulp bomb. Remember these catapults that are in the corners of the map? Well, you can use the enemy's catapult to your advantage on offense. Jump off of top mid and then bounce the ball off of the ground in front of the pole. If you aimed it right, it will bounce back up into the pole where it will get launched back to top mid. Then you jump up and do a wall shot to collect the ball back out of the air. The bounce is very important because if you just throw the ball directly at the pole, it won't go neutral, so you won't be able to re-grab it. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can chain this pulp bomb into a wall extender too. Now, there's one last major piece of tech that you're definitely going to want to know if you want to master your Passtime bombs, and that is the Instadet. Instadets work because they abuse the natural magnetism that the ball has to a player. When you get close to the ball, it wants to follow you, and it will continue to follow you for a long time if it's close enough. So if you jump and the ball begins to follow you, you can fire a rocket at the ball to give yourself speed. This is called ball pogo, and it's pretty easy to do, but an Instadet is when you fire your explosive at the ball and have the ball instantly go back into your hands immediately afterwards. And the timing of an Instadet is much harder than a regular ball pogo. You can chain ball pogo into an Instadet to absolutely nuke yourself across the map, and you can even use it as a mid-air extender in certain circumstances. Everything we just talked about are all the key ingredients to a self-bomb. In isolation, they're relatively easy to understand, but chaining them together takes incredible mastery to do consistently. So with all of what we've just learned, let's take a look at some examples of real self-bombs. We'll start with something simple. Stand right at this wall and throw the ball to this ramp. Rocket jump once off the wall, then once off the ramp to collect the ball. This can launch you straight into the enemy goal. If we want to make this more complex, we have quite a few options. After collecting the ball, we can strafe hard to the right to get onto this top right ramp, then extender on that ramp to fly into the goal. We could even extender this top ramp, then extender above the enemy goal too. We can also strafe hard to the left and set up a fence dribble off this fence here. Throw the ball on the ground before the fence, then land on top of the lower part and wall shot the fence post back into the ball. We can then chain that first fence dribble into a second fence dribble over here. But if we don't want a fence dribble, we could also go for a wall extender on this wall here. If this ramp here isn't to your liking, then you can also use the lower ramp under mid too, and it actually allows you to chain into quite a few of the same things. But let's take a look at a new one. If I stand up here, I can throw the ball loose onto mid and then jump it and speed shot off of it. Doing this then lets me hit an extender on the ramp ahead of me, and if I get a really good first extender, I can then get a second extender off of the enemy goal too. There's also this spot on a different map where there's water besides your goal. If you stand in that water and rebound off the side of your goal, you can use one single rocket to reach the side ramps with enormous speed. My favorite thing to do off of this is to extender once on the ramp, extender again on the same ramp, then extender this flat part of the wall above the enemy goal to turn around 180 and dunk on the enemy. It's a very fun thing to do, and it carries you across the entire map single-handedly. But you can also use the water jump to go lower too, which opens up even more possibilities of places to go. There's also this funny sink dribble idea. Throw the ball down below you and sink dribble into it. I find this easiest when I aim the ball right at this part of the fence here. So I throw the ball right as I walk off, and then I do the sink dribble. After my sink dribble, on the way up into the sky, I throw the ball upwards and wall extender on this wall. This absolutely nukes me into the skybox with the ball in hand. There are so many self-bombs on so many maps, and all of it comes from linking these pieces of the chain together in creative ways. And because of this open-endedness, if you get good enough at these mechanics, you might find yourself discovering your own self-bombs. Although I will say, not every bomb people find is very practical in a real game. Some of them are done purely for flashiness' sake, including that one sink one I just talked about. Like, yeah, you can throw the ball through this hole and have it go out the other hole on the other side, then go around here and speed shot and ramp shot to grab the ball. You can do that, it's possible, but it's really, and I mean really, Stupid. If you want this bomb to work, you need not a single enemy player to be anywhere on this entire highlighted section of the map, or else it just doesn't work. So this bomb just doesn't get pulled off very often, but people have hit it in a real game. Now, we just went down the rabbit hole for soldier tech, and we learned all sorts of crazy terminology that's going to help us a lot with this next part. Now let's talk about our other two classes. We'll start with demo. The simplest form of mobility for demo is a pipe jump. You throw the ball or get a pass, and right before you grab the ball, you put a pipe on the floor. Then you jump crouch as it detonates to do a pipe jump. Ideally, you do this with the iron bomber so that the pipe doesn't like do this when you fire it. But this isn't exactly fast or versatile. It lets you jump super far, but it requires setup time. So if you're being shot at by an enemy player, this isn't ideal. If you need something a bit faster than a pipe jump, demo has insta-dets. If you directly hit the ball with a demo pipe, the pipe detonates instantly. So you can get super close to the ball, then jump, crouch, and pipe jump off of it. And with the right timing, the ball will follow you through the air. And if you get it just right, you can chain 2 of these in a row just like this. This is insanely powerful, but also very difficult to pull off. You can even use an insta-det as an extender, but demo also has his shield charges, and this is where things get interesting. Most maps will have a ramp setup that looks something like this: a steep ramp to the side and a shallow ramp next to it. This ramp is shallow enough to walk on, which means you can throw the ball at it and it will go neutral. So you can throw the ball at the edge of the shallow ramp and then charge into the steep ramp to send yourself into the air with the ball. And this is what's known as a demo thing. Yeah, that is what we call it. It's pretty descriptive if you ask me. The demo thing is pretty powerful, and it doesn't require any charge turning at all, which means it can be done with the pipe launcher as well as with boots. And this demo thing can be chained into some funny stuff. You can do a demo thing, then bounce the ball off of this fence, and then pipe pogo off of it. You can also throw the ball up in the air, charge the demo thing ramp, and then caber it mid-air to grab the ball and launch yourself into space. You can even do the demo thing, and right before you grab the ball, pre-fire a pipe in the air in front of you. And if you aimed it right, it will detonate mid-air as you fly past it to launch yourself further into the goal. But what if you forego the pipes in favor of a loadout like this? Boots, shield, and a caber. This is what we in the business like to call the stoic demo man. Named this because once you've used your charge and your caber, you sort of just stand there and stoically watch your team lose the game with nothing you can really do about it. Not having pipes makes you much worse at fighting people, and it also makes you much worse at defending too. Your only options to block the goal are to crouch and caber the floor, or to charge the goal. But what you gain from using this loadout is the ability to travel at supersonic speeds. The bread and butter of a stoic demo looks something like this. Lob the ball on a shallow ramp from an angle, then trimp into it to fly across the map in the blink of an eye. This happens so fast that the enemy has to preempt you doing it. They have to predict you ahead of time, which isn't impossible, but it does force at least one enemy player to be more passive when the demo has the ball. If you caber the ramp as you trimp right before you hit the ball, you send yourself directly to the moon. Trimping like this is the bread and butter of a stoic demo. Even without your caber, you can do a whole bunch of creative trimps that move you faster and farther than a soldier could ever dream of. But the caber opens up a whole ton of options too. Like, you can lob the ball up at a wall like this, then charge the ramp beside it and caber the ball on your way up to fly into the sky. There's also this setup where you walk off the high ground and throw the ball up as you fall off, then trimp that exact same ramp and caber it to nuke into space. There's also caber extenders. If you have speed on a ramp, you can throw the ball up that ramp and then caber it again to do an extender much like a soldier would. Unlike a soldier though, these are very situational, because the caber has a deploy speed penalty on it, which means switching from the ball to the caber takes a long time, which limits your options. There's also caber jumping. Crouching and swinging at the floor sends you up into the air a little way, and this is perfect height to jump in front of the goal and defend. You can also jump, crouch, and swing at a wall to gain even more height too. And if you're feeling really adventurous, you can even C-tap caber. If I jump, crouch, and swing at the floor, my caber doesn't have enough range to reach the ground, so nothing happens. But if I do a C-tap and swing my caber just at the right time, the caber Saber does reach the ground, and it allows you to nuke yourself into the air. If you want a better explanation of what a C-tap is and how it works, then you can check out this video right here, linked in the sidebar. Saber C-taps are super powerful for getting intercepts, because they send you high enough to catch soldiers who are well above single rocket jump height. You can essentially Saber C-tap and then charge strafe to reach basically anywhere in 3D space on the entire map. And it also gives you a great vantage point to be able to throw the ball at a ramp far away and then trimp it to fly into the enemy goal. All these forms of Saber jumps also allow you to do dribbles as demo. Usually these freestyle dribbles are a soldier only thing, but your one Saber charge counts as one single dribble opportunity. You can throw the ball down, then Saber C-tap back up into it. And you can even chain that with a trimp dribble on certain ramps on maps where it's available. Rebound dribbles also kinda work, but they're pretty clunky because of the Saber weapon switch debuff. On offense, Demo is extraordinarily powerful because of how fast he moves, but he sacrifices consistent defense to achieve this. But because you can only have one Demo per team, this is usually a worthwhile trade-off. You can trust in your soldiers to do a lot of the complex defensive stuff, whilst you can just help them a ton on offense. But now we reach Medic, a class that, as you can imagine, doesn't have insane movement tech in the same way the other classes do. Medic can't explosive jump, so he doesn't have access to a lot of the ball mechanics that the other classes do. But he does have a few tricks up his sleeve. For a start, he can arrow airshot the ball. When a Medic crossbow hits the ball, it doesn't deal any knockback, but it does make the ball go neutral. This means that a well-timed crossbow can prevent the enemy from scoring the goal. The ball has to be team-colored to score, so neutraling the ball prevents it from scoring. And this is pretty powerful. The crossbow is the fastest projectile in the game mode, so people can get very consistent at airshotting the ball. Although it is worth noting that this isn't quite how the crossbow works in the base game. See, in vanilla casual Passtime, the crossbow is bugged. The crossbow projectile will hit the ball and disappear as if it collided with the ball, but the crossbow doesn't do anything. It doesn't make the ball go neutral, and it doesn't give the ball knockback either. So in 4v4 Passtime, we use a bug fix plugin to prevent this, which opens up way more options for Medic. Medic can also surf. Surfing is when an enemy player shoots at you and you use the knockback of their damage to travel faster than usual. Other classes can surf damage, but Medic relies on it, so Medic players will generally be much better at it. And Medic has the longest throw range in the entire game, much further than Soldier and Demo, meaning that if the Medic hits a surf, he's practically guaranteed to dunk on the enemy goal. There's also a technique called the Easy E steal, named after the player that popularized the idea. When an enemy is walking at you, you throw the ball at the ground in front of them, then melee them to steal the ball back. If you threw the ball directly at the enemy, it would count as an intercept and they would become invulnerable. So the ball has to hit the ground first so that it goes neutral. Pulling off an Easy E steal gives you a free 2 seconds of invulnerability and speed boost. And enemies do have quite a few counters to this, but you can catch them off guard with it a lot of the time. Technically all the other classes can do an Easy E steal, but Medic's faster move speed means he can do it the most effectively. Medic's move speed also makes him very good at something we call pickpocketing. When a soldier goes for a dribble, they'll often throw the ball directly at the ground. If a Medic positions himself well, he can stand beneath lots of common dribble spots and pickpocket enemy dribbles. This sounds super hard to do, but with good game sense and positioning, Med players can do this pretty regularly. It forces enemy soldiers to go for more difficult fence dribbles, which just limits their options. Now, Medic can heal his teammates and stuff, but in Passtime, that's really just not that big of a deal. As long as you overheal your players out of spawn and arrow them when they ask for it, Medic spends most of the game being super aggressive. You might think staying alive would be great because of Uber charge, because, you know, being invincible is really powerful, right? But in Passtime, Uber is actually quite bad, like, most of the time.
Aww.
If you Uber your teammate, both you and that teammate can't pick up the ball or be passed to. So the majority of the time, Uber is actually a bad thing. If you Uber yourself, you can un-Uber instantly by just switching weapons, which allows for a lot of tricky mind games when you're going for melee steals and stuff. In fact, you can simplify playing Medic in Passtime to just a single word. Medic is all about aura. If I play medic and I walk forward with the ball, a soldier might jump me and shoot a rocket at me. But if he does do that, I can surf that rocket into the enemy goal and score. Next time he sees me with the ball, he's gonna think twice about shooting me. So maybe instead, he'll jump me with his melee out. But if I juke his jump, he's no longer on goal to defend, so I can just throw the ball in. So he loses again. So the third time he sees me, he's just terrified of me. I've developed enough aura to be able to just walk all over the enemy side without them doing a whole lot to stop me. Now, if they start disrespecting me, it is possible for them to kill me or steal from me. But if I'm good enough at med, they're afraid to do this. They fear me. My aura lets me stall with the ball for basically as long as I feel like, which gives me and my team tons of time to kill enemies or get in position to be passed to, or to go for a crazy handoff so that we win. And when you play on a team with super good medics, you can pass to them pretty comfortably and know that they will probably do quite a lot with that possession. But with a bad med on your team, they lose the ball the instant they get it, because they don't have the aura. That long section was the fundamentals of all three classes in 4v4 Passtime. And when mastered, you can do some unbelievable things in this game mode. This has rapidly become my favourite way to play TF2, because you are so heavily rewarded for having good movement. Your DM is important too, but it's a whole lot less important than your ability to do crazy jumps and outmaneuver your opponent. And movement has always been my personal favourite part of TF2, so it's no surprise that this has become my favourite way to play the game. The respawn times are extremely low and the maps are small, which means you have regular access to your resupply cabinet. So even if you are a complete DM warlord, it doesn't really matter because the enemies respawn so fast. So the most effective way to beat your opponent is to dunk. If all of this sounded fun to you, then you should definitely give it a try. If you want to play the game mode, visit this website, which is linked in the description. There you can join the community Discord servers that run daily pickup games. Choose the region that's right for you and get in. I also made a super useful Passtime tutorial video for beginners that goes over tons of useful knowledge. I also made a clip video that shows the best and funniest clips that I've hit since I started playing the game mode. Once you get the basics of this game mode down, it is insanely addictive. You can solo carry an entire game purely based on good movement alone, and it is a blast to play. So screw this boring casual Passtime garbage and come play the real game mode, 4v4 Passtime, where you get to see what Passtime is really about.
Shit, cause I'm beast. Suck my dick, I'm taking this shit in.
I'm about to go. I'm about to go.
Suck my cock.
Before I end this video, I just want to make a little announcement. An announcement that I finally made It can get you access to exclusive behind-the-scenes live streams where we can watch my most recent video together, and I can go through a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff on how I made the video. And this week's Patreon live stream will be available to anyone for free. So even if you don't decide to use my Patreon, which is completely fine, I hope to see you at the live stream anyway. If you can't afford it, don't feel pressured into spending money. The fact that you watch these videos at all is support enough. But for those who can afford it, who feel like maybe going the extra mile, it'd be greatly appreciated. And thank you all for your continued support, and thank you all for watching these dumb YouTube videos I make sometimes. Thanks for watching.